I'm so sorry. How many people are getting attacked? Children.
I think that this is an issue for some people that is extremely emotional and it invokes tears. And if that is, like, I'm not gonna demean Selena Gomez because she was emotionally enraged.
Selena Gomez posted a video crying over ICE arrests. That alone is bound to raise curiosity, right? In a surprising turn of events, the renowned actor Mel Gibson allegedly criticized Selena Gomez for shedding tears over recent Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, arrests.
ICE agents are rounding up undocumented criminals, arresting some 200 individuals in the Southland so far. Their targets, criminal aliens and immigration violators.
Fans are left buzzing. Why on earth would Mel Gibson pick on Selena's emotional stance? Is he questioning her sincerity, or does he have deeper thoughts on border policies? Selena Gomez's emotional video. Selena Gomez, singer, actress, and pop culture icon, posted a tearful video decrying the arrests and deportations carried out by ICE under the Trump administration. She emphasized how heartbreaking it was to see children separated from their families, not knowing if or when they'd be reunited. This segment focuses on the deeper context behind her now-deleted video and delves into why it caught so much attention. Selena, who has Mexican heritage, shared a video on Instagram in which she was visibly crying. She apologized and expressed sadness about people she regarded as her people being taken or targeted. In that brief moment, she poured her heart out, wishing she could do something to help. But almost as quickly, it vanished from her social media. That removal led some to question whether it was genuine or if she feared backlash. Some fans applauded Selena's demonstrated empathy. They felt her tears reflected the anguish of families torn apart. Yet, critics pounced, accusing her of making crocodile tears and not understanding the full scope of illegal immigration.
The children that are being trafficked at the border, assault occurring, the human trafficking, the smuggling of drugs. That should concern you more than virtue signaling to your audience and your crocodile tears.
Others questioned her references to her people, since she is an American citizen. This subtle conflict highlighted the multi-layered debates about heritage, nationality, and empathy. Born and raised in Texas, Selena has partial Mexican ancestry and has often expressed pride in her roots. In the United States, especially in states like Texas and California, families with Mexican lineage can feel a direct connection to the immigration struggles at the border, making it a very emotional topic. Selena Gomez's immense platform, with millions of social media followers, means her voice travels far. Anytime she addresses a political or social issue, it's likely to spark public conversation. In the modern era, celebrities aren't just entertainers. They're also activists, or at least they often feel compelled to speak up. From humanitarian aid to comments on elections, their influence intersects with politics more than ever. Selena's tearful clip was one among many celebrity-driven statements on immigration, but it stood out for its raw emotion. The deletions that followed, however, made onlookers wonder if her public meltdown was a spur-of-the-moment reaction she regretted. One of the pointed criticisms leveled at Selena, and many other wealthy stars, is whether they are willing to put money or direct assistance behind their words, beyond just crying online. Skeptics argue that with her resources, Selena Gomez could fund legal teams to help undocumented families or donate to nonprofit groups that facilitate immigrant relief. Why cry on an Instagram video only to remove it later, especially when an artist of her caliber has myriad ways to provide tangible support? Mel Gibson's calling out Selena Gomez. In recent reports, Mel Gibson supposedly called out Selena Gomez, questioning why she wept over something he believes demands more logical discussion. While we don't have direct footage of him speaking about Selena, this rumored critique sets the stage for exploring critical viewpoints on celebrity activism. Many, including Gibson, as is claimed, seem to dislike seeing tearful outbursts from public figures on weighty matters like immigration law.
Immigration continues to be a hot-button issue because it gets at the very heart of American identity.
Instead, they might prefer well-thought-out discussions or direct problem-solving steps. The perspective here is, if you're going to weigh in on politics, do it with a plan, and strong rational arguments that can stand up to scrutiny. Critics assert that celebrities who post emotional appeals and then delete them might be playing to their base. Ordinary folks raising families and paying bills can become frustrated by what they see as virtue signaling. From that viewpoint, Selena's crying could be interpreted as a performance. They wonder, would she still be in tears if the cameras and phone weren't recording? Interfering in immigration policy is no small thing. Should celebrities, whether Selena Gomez or Mel Gibson, speak on topics so entangled with law enforcement? On one hand, free speech is for everyone. On the other, celebrity endorsements can shift public opinion, sometimes ignoring detailed realities. If an actress's tearful plea oversimplifies the topic, a veteran actor might raise concerns, wanting a more balanced approach. One reason Gibson's stance stands out is that it highlights a long-standing debate. Are emotional appeals effective tools to drive solutions, or do they hinder rational discourse? Empathy is crucial if we aim to see the human faces behind immigration policies. Yet facts about drug smuggling, human trafficking, and other criminal elements can't be brushed aside. When passionate pleas overshadow these aspects, critics say the conversation stalls. Mel Gibson has, in his own history, faced controversies and cancellations. Allegedly, calling out Selena might reflect the idea that big stars should be more cautious before presenting tearful messages. He could be pointing out that if you jump in too quickly, you'll face consequences, public shaming or retraction, as Selena might have discovered when she deleted her video. The debate over enforcement. Central to Selena's tears and the alleged Gibson remark is the controversy surrounding immigration and customs enforcement. ICE arrests have risen and fallen under different administrations.
President Trump's crackdown on undocumented immigrants continues as ICE carries out raids in major cities across the country,
sparking countless debates about whether stronger enforcement helps or hurts communities. The text references how ICE, especially under the Trump administration, carried out multiple raids targeting undocumented individuals. Video footage showed law enforcement vehicles stopping vans loaded with people from countries like China. Some bystanders were upset, accusing officers of heartlessness. Others suggested it was just the law in action. Crossing the border illegally is, after all, a violation of U.S. law. One of the most potent arguments of Selena Gomez, and those who share her viewpoint, centers on children. Stories of kids ending up in detention or separated from relatives evoke deep empathy. Critics of ICE's approach feel the government should avoid traumatizing young ones. Yet proponents argue that any adult who breaks immigration laws places their children at risk. When families cross illegally, they risk separation, and these supporters see it as a consequence of the initial unlawful act. A critical dimension often overshadowed in social media debates is the responsibility of employers. Text from the attached document mentions how companies, especially large-scale farms and certain business owners, knowingly hire undocumented workers for cheap labor. Many ask, why aren't officials equally focusing on penalizing the businesses that attract illegal migration by promising under-the-table wages? This question rarely appears in celebrity posts that highlight only the dramatic side of deportations. When analyzing U.S. history, forced labor, whether slavery or the use of cheap, undocumented labor, has been a mainstay. Some argue that the current immigration challenges reflect a centuries-long pattern of trying to get labor for less. That angle doesn't always factor into teary-eyed statements, but it's a crucial part of the conversation. People who have protested or supported ICE arrests point to this historical thread, noting that laws must address not just the migrants, but those who employ them. Tom Homan, former ICE acting director, and others stress the dangers of smuggling rings.
Tom Homan is a former Border Patrol agent and acting director of ICE with decades of experience in Republican and Democratic administrations.
There have been cases where dozens of immigrants were crammed into unsafe transport vehicles, leading to suffocation, dehydration, or other physical dangers. The tearful sympathies we see online sometimes fail to highlight these networks exploiting desperate people. When law enforcement makes arrests, they argue it's partly to dismantle the smuggling pipeline endangering these migrants. Why some veterans and citizens are angry. In the provided text, there's a segment from a self-identified war veteran. Injured in combat, he vents frustration at seeing unregulated immigration. His viewpoint illuminates another side of anger over celebrity tears. The veteran's rant is grounded in a personal story of sacrifice, including permanent injuries and a life spent fighting for America's safety. He references friends who earned their legal status through U.S. military service. So, from his standpoint, there's little sympathy for people who cross illegally without pursuing formal avenues, given the existence of lawful routes that some soldiers have utilized. This question looms large. Veterans often feel overlooked or undersupported, struggling with healthcare, unemployment, or homelessness. It's not uncommon for them to resent politicians and celebrities who cry about funding benefits for undocumented immigrants, while many veterans remain in dire conditions. This clash fosters resentment. Why are Selena's tears reserved more for illegal entrants than for people who nearly died protecting those borders? Additional frustration stems from the belief that undocumented workers may drive wages down by accepting underpaid jobs, or that resources such as welfare programs might become strained. Whether true or exaggerated, these beliefs fuel tensions with longtime citizens and legal residents who wonder if their own prospects weaken when illegal entry is condoned. It's easy for an outsider to label any strong stance on immigration as hateful or xenophobic. While such bigotry can exist, some anger rises from legitimate concerns over law and order, fairness, and the personal sacrifices individuals have made for the nation.
As the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency ramps up arrests in several cities all across the country, the Justice Department sending out a memo threatening to prosecute state and local officials who resist federal immigration crackdown.
When a famous actress cries on social media in a perceived oversimplification, these individuals may see it as a slap in the face to their lived experiences. The veteran in the text highlights DACA recipients who joined the U.S. military to secure their permanent status. He sees it as a fair exchange, service for citizenship. Others wait in line for years to get visas. Consequently, people who sidestep these processes frustrate those who cannot skip the line. The last thing they want to see is a wealthy celebrity lamenting the deportation of folks who knowingly broke the rules. At times, celebrities may neglect to amplify the voices of veterans, law enforcement officers, or legal immigrants who advocate for stricter measures. A balanced immigration discussion would include both empathy for families facing deportation and recognition of those who have abided by the rules or risked their lives in war zones. This veteran's fiery comments might sound harsh, but they shine light on an underrepresented perspective: the controversy of clickbait voices and deleted posts. Social media thrives on shock value. High-profile names like Selena Gomez know that any mention of tearful pleas, children in distress, or strong condemnation can quickly go viral. But what about when posts vanish? Or when brand new controversies emerge claiming unexpected celebrities like Mel Gibson have jumped into the ring? Selena's tearful Instagram post came, garnered attention, and abruptly disappeared. That short life cycle often amplifies conversation. Fans scramble to find the original, critics screen record it, blog sites re-upload it, and suddenly it's everywhere. This phenomenon magnifies controversies to a point where the context can get lost in the noise, leading to more confusion about the root concerns over immigration. Many outlets thrive on capturing every slip-up or raw emotion from celebrities. It's big business to highlight an unexpected meltdown, but the same cycle can intimidate the star who posted it, making them fear backlash or legal repercussions. So they sometimes delete it, which ironically can make the drama even bigger. When rumors swirl that a major figure like Gibson criticized Gomez, the story can skyrocket in interest, especially if it frames them as diametrically opposed. Even if Gibson's critique isn't supported by direct video or official statements, headlines feed off that tension. Audiences love a clash of big names. Is it fair to amplify a rumored dispute? Possibly not. But that's the reality of viral news. In Selena's case, perhaps she removed her post to avoid more negative comments. Some fans might have been disappointed that she didn't stand her ground, but high-profile figures are often cautious. Prolonged debate can cost them brand deals, sponsorships, or cause them to be harassed online. So, the balance of speaking up versus staying safe becomes tricky ground. Another angle, maybe Selena helps immigrants privately through donations or legal funds without publicizing it. It's possible that her tearful post was an emotional breakdown after seeing a specific story, which she later wanted to keep from overshadowing whatever quiet work she might be doing. We can't be sure. High-profile activism sometimes happens behind the scenes. Still, the question arises, are tearful videos or short tweets an oversimplification of a complex issue? Immigration, involving laws, border security, economic push and pull, and humanitarian concerns, is rarely a black and white discussion. While quick emotional expressions can raise awareness, critics worry they fail to engage potential solutions, leaving the public with more sentiment than clarity, law, empathy, and public discourse. Ultimately, the matter of Selena Gomez's tears, and any call-out from someone as prominent as Mel Gibson, centers on a universal challenge. How do we, as a society, balance law enforcement with compassion? Even critics must acknowledge that deportations can be emotionally gut-wrenching. Children, who may have come at a very young age, grow up in the U.S. with limited knowledge of their birth countries. Families might have been hoping to find refuge from violence, only to be uprooted and sent back. Empathy is not a weakness. It's a natural human response to suffering, especially when the sufferers include kids. That said, laws exist to maintain order. Border control is widely recognized as a cornerstone of national sovereignty, and not everyone crossing illegally is a harmless teacher or caretaker. Bad actors take advantage of open routes to smuggle drugs, traffic humans, or commit violent crimes. While not representative of all migrants, this criminal element is real. Proponents of strict enforcement argue that ignoring it places both citizens and honest immigrants in jeopardy. Instead of discouraging tears, some experts suggest using that emotional catalyst to start well-informed dialogues. That means discussing comprehensive immigration reform, supporting organizations that offer legal help, or creating clearer pathways for work visas. If Selena Gomez or any celebrity invests in such measures, they could transform raw sadness into meaningful social progress. Another overlooked angle is central to the text's mention of historical labor exploitation, the lure of cheap labor. Migrants often come seeking opportunities for better wages, and certain employers exploit them with minimal fear of penalties. Improving conditions in countries of origin through international cooperation and strictly punishing employers who hire undocumented workers might reduce the push to migrate illegally. Crying, calling out, or mocking are all extremes we've seen in immigration discussions. But the best solutions likely require bridging emotional empathy with practical steps. No matter how many times public figures, talk show hosts, or political leaders wave a finger at one another, progress may only come when we tackle root problems. Ineffective or outdated immigration laws, unscrupulous companies, and the deeper global socioeconomic factors that spark migration. Mel Gibson's rumored criticisms or any future celebrity commentary might keep the conversation swirling, but everyday people want resolutions, safer borders, fair wages, and fewer heartbreaks. Whether Selena Gomez will try again to share her feelings without sparking a storm remains to be seen. Perhaps next time, she'll choose a different strategy, maybe a calm talk, a donation drive, or a documentary that digs deeper.
Continuing coverage of the Titan submersible hearings. Today we heard the testimony from a man who went to the bottom of the ocean with Ocean Gate and resurfaced with red flags.
Stockton Rush. Stockton Rush was the mind behind the Titan submersible, designed for adventure tourists to explore the Titanic wreck. During a voyage with 4 others on board, the Titan imploded just 1,600 feet from the Titanic's remains, killing Rush and 4 other persons. Before this fatal journey, Rush had brushed off warnings from experts. In 2019, Carl Stanley, a deep-sea explorer and owner of Stanley's submarines, took a test dive with Rush. Afterward, Stanley raised concerns about the dangers of hastening preparations, but Rush dismissed the advice, responding in an email that Stanley should keep his opinions to himself. William Bullock. Bullock, a newspaper editor, transformed the printing industry with his groundbreaking improvements to the rotary printing press. His invention allowed a continuous roll of paper, miles long, to feed automatically into the press, eliminating the need for manual loading. Thanks to his design, factories could produce 8,000 to 10,000 sheets per hour, drastically boosting printing speeds and efficiency. While installing one of his own printing presses, Bullock's leg was caught in the machinery. The injury crushed his foot, leading to a gangrene infection that claimed his life just days later.
William Bullock accidentally got his foot caught in the machinery. The injury was severe and led to an infection which ultimately caused his death a few days later at the age of 55.
Robert Cocking. Cocking, a watercolor painter with a passion for air travel, designed a parachute in 1837 and proudly showcased it at London's Vauxhall Gardens. On its first test, he detached his parachute from a hot air balloon, only to plummet hundreds of feet to his death. According to some reports, when his body was recovered, curious onlookers had already taken his watch, snuff box, and even his glass eye. While Cocking's parachute design faded into obscurity, he is remembered as the first recorded person to die testing a parachute, Franz Reichelt. Reichelt, famously called the Flying Tailor, decided to test his homemade parachute in the boldest way possible, by jumping off the Eiffel Tower. A skilled dressmaker by trade, Reichelt had been working on his parachute design for a while. Even though aviation experts dismissed his idea, he refused to give up. Confident in his creation, Reichelt chose to test it himself. On February 4, 1912, he shocked officials at the Eiffel Tower by announcing he would replace the test dummy with himself. With a crowd of spectators, reporters, and cameras watching, Reichelt leaped from the tower, trusting his 20-pound parachute. Sadly, his invention failed, and he fell to his death, leaving a tragic mark on history both literally and figuratively. Henry Smolinski and Harold Blake. Smolinski and Blake set out to build the world's first flying car, the AVE Mizar. Inspired by a star in the Big Dipper, they combined two unlikely machines, a Cessna Skymaster airplane and a Ford Pinto car, to bring their vision to life. While the project faced some issues early on, the duo had a few minor successes during test flights. Confident in their progress, they attempted another test flight on September 11, 1973, at Ventura County Airport in California. Soon after takeoff, black smoke poured from the flying car. Moments later, it crashed, killing both Smolinski and Blake and putting an end to their ambitious dream.
On September 11, 1973, Henry and Hal tested the Cessna Skymaster and Ford Pinto hatchback hybrid near Oxnard Airport. During the flight, something went wrong, and the plane struck a tree before smashing into a pickup truck. Both Smolinski and Blake died instantly.
Thomas Midgley Jr. Midgley Jr. is known for inventing leaded gasoline and the chemical used in air conditioning and refrigeration. He later contracted polio and tragically died in a device he created to help him get in and out of bed. While the public was told his death was an accident, the New York Times Magazine reported that it was privately considered a suicide. Either way, it was one of his own inventions that played a part in his demise. Luis Jimenez. Jimenez, the sculptor who created the famous Blucifer at Denver International Airport, tragically died when parts of his sculpture fell on him. He had been working on the piece for almost 10 years under contract with the airport when the accident occurred. The 32-foot-tall, 9,000-pound sculpture broke loose from a hoist while being moved and crushed Jimenez against a steel support beam. The impact severed an artery in his leg, and he passed away before reaching the hospital. Marie Curie. Marie Curie and her husband Pierre Curie were the ones who discovered radium and polonium. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. Curie passed away from aplastic pernicious anemia, a condition caused by her exposure to radioactive materials during her work. This happened 31 years after she won her first Nobel Prize. Curie also won a Nobel Prize for isolating radium, and is still the only person to have received the award in two different scientific fields. Otto Lilienthal. Otto Lilienthal, the man who inspired the Wright brothers, was the first person to make safe and repeatable gliding flights. Before his achievements, flying seemed like an impossible dream. He was the first to prove that gliders could fly successfully more than once. On August 10, 1896, Lilienthal tried a new technique called shifting weight while flying a glider at 50 feet. Unfortunately, the glider lost lift, stalled, and crashed, causing him to break his neck and spine. He passed away the next day.
Until his plane veered off and crashed, resulting in him breaking his neck. He died the next day in a Berlin hospital.
His last words in the hospital were, "Opfer müssen gebracht werden," which means, "Small sacrifices must be made." Alexander Bogdanov. Alexander Bogdanov was a Russian physician, writer, politician, and part-time inventor. During the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, he was jailed for opposing Vladimir Lenin. Miraculously, he talked his way out of death row and returned to medicine, where he became obsessed with blood. Bogdanov created a unique philosophy called techtology, which is now considered an early form of systems theory. He founded the Institute for Hematology and believed blood transfusion was the key to curing many diseases. To prove his theory, he experimented on himself by transfusing blood from a patient with malaria and tuberculosis. He died 2 days later, on April 7, 1928, but the patient slowly recovered. Horace Lawson Hunley. Horace Lawson Hunley is known for inventing the submarine. He created early models of hand-powered submarines, with the most famous one named after him, the H.L. Hunley. His first prototype, however, ended in tragedy when it trapped 7 sailors underwater and caused their deaths. Determined, Hunley redesigned the submarine and created a new version, the H.L. Hunley, which he personally commanded. On October 15, 1863, while testing the submarine off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina, it failed to surface again, resulting in the loss of the crew, including Hunley himself. Max Valier. Valier was one of the first people to see the potential of rockets. He founded the German Verein für Raumschifffahrt, or Spaceflight Society, which is considered an early inspiration for 20th century space missions, including the Apollo moon mission. Between 1928 and 1929, Valier worked with Fritz von Opel to create rocket-powered cars. The Spaceflight Society focused on developing liquid-fueled rocket vehicles. Valier even tested a rocket car powered by liquid propulsion. Sadly, in 1930, Valier died at 35 after an explosion during one of his experiments. Without proper safety precautions, he was sitting too close to a combustion chamber while testing a mix of kerosene and oxygen. After 2 successful tests, his excitement led him to try a third, which turned out to be his last. Sabin Arnold von Sochacki. Ukrainian chemist Sabin Arnold von Sochacki is often credited with inventing luminescent paint, which contained radium, a substance discovered by Marie and Pierre Curie in 1898. Von Sochacki's company, the Radium Luminous Material Corporation, opened multiple factories in the U.S. to produce glowing watch dials. Later, female workers at these factories sued the company after experiencing harmful radiation exposure. In the end, von Sochacki also fell victim to the effects of radiation. He died in 1928 from aplastic anemia, a condition caused by damage to his bone marrow from prolonged radiation exposure. Karol Suchek. Czech stuntman Karol Suchek became famous in 1984 after surviving a barrel ride over Niagara Falls.
The famous Canadian stuntman became famous after his jump from Niagara Falls with his invention called capsule. In 1985, he found a sponsor to fund a jump from the top of the Astrodome Indoor Stadium in Houston, Texas.
Sadly, just a few months later, he passed away while testing a new barrel with shock-absorbing features. Karol was dropped from the top of the Houston Astrodome into a water tank, but instead of landing in the water, his barrel hit the edge of the tank. He died from his injuries in the hospital shortly after. Cowper Phipps Coles. Coles was an inventor and a captain in the Royal Navy who created a revolving gun turret during the Crimean War. This turret was later installed on several British ships. Over time, his design became the standard for all warships, especially after engines replaced sails. In 1866, the Royal Navy decided to build the HMS Captain, a warship designed by Coles as an experiment. Meanwhile, the public keeps watching, reading headlines like, Mel Gibson calls out Selena Gomez for crying over ICE arrests, wondering how many more times these stars will clash before genuine change takes place.